We now have a panel discussion, topic being Innovating Monetization, how Adtech is transforming broadcast revenue models. While they're putting the chairs up, I'd just like to announce that our moderator is Manoj Madhavan, editor, Broadcast and Film Magazine, and our speakers, our panelists who are patiently waiting. Manoj Padmanabhan, Head BD, India and SAT, Media and Entertainment Industry, AWS. Gautaman Ragothaman, Founding CEO, Achilles. Jay Ganesan, Senior VP, APAC. Harshvardhan Nayak, VP, Head of Global Client Solutions and Strategy, Prime Focus Technologies. And Paritosh Saha, Executive Director, Broadcast, Technology and Operations, Disney Star. Can we have a round of applause for them?
I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished panelists. And after that brilliant showcase of the wildlife cinematography, our next session will be tackling the topic of innovating monetization and how Adtech is transforming broadcast revenue models in news and entertainment. I would like to start by asking my first question to Mr. Manoj Padmanabhan. How has advertising transformed over the years for the broadcasters? If you can share some of your insights.
Thank you. I'm audible, right? Thank you. Thank you, Manoj, for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be on the panel with eminent panelists out here. The question has got an emotional connect, plus after being so many years in the industry, when somebody is asking you what is the transition. So there are a lot of things to be said right from the inception when you used to see an ad which was there on a television screen, you can't do anything, till the time today where every person who's watching a content can get a differentiated ad. So that's the transition that the industry had from a $5 billion a few years ago to a $15 billion India advertising industry. So the transition is basically it was a laid back ad that everybody used to see. From there it moved on into identifying who the user is on the digital platform and then targeting him an ad. Then it went on to identifying what the content is and then placing an ad relevant to the content. Then it went on to understanding who the user is, about all his credentials, the first party data, and then I can actually target every user and every ad. So that's the transformation that broadcasters has seen from inception till now.
That's an interesting take. I would now like to address the next question to Mr. Gautaman, who's been an advertising pioneer, having worked with some of the top advertising agencies. Tell us, Mr. Gautaman, how has the integration of Adtech changed the landscape of revenue generation for broadcasters in news and entertainment?
It's a mixed response, I would say. Okay. At one end, Adtech is supposed to bring in efficiencies to advertising, where the brands get better reach and publishers get better yield. That was the purpose of Adtech, and it's supposed to automate the process in between. And in my view, it is still a work in progress. So, been in advertising from the both sides. The question is, while the intent is very, very clear, better reach for brands, better yield for publishers, and better efficiencies in the process, the Adtech is still not structuring itself very well, particularly because of privacy regulations. So far, the system in between is using third-party trackers, which was not consented by the consumer. And it was all okay till regulations kicked in and started talking about consented consumers. And this technology is still not ready to handle privacy regulations. So we have reached a situation where it is about repeated, incessant tracking of the same consumer, which is not leading to a better reach for the brands, which is not leading to better monitoring for the publishers. So Manoj, to your question, it is an unfinished agenda. Lots to do.
Okay, we have a broadcaster amidst us, Paritosh. Paritosh, I would like to understand from you, how has Adtech helped broadcasters diversify their revenue streams beyond traditional ad sales? And are there new innovative models that broadcasters should consider?
Thank you. Uh, see, we have been trying this model for some time, and I've been uh, working on this since 2012, and there has been ups and downs. So it definitely helps. Okay, but I think around that 2012 to 2014 mark, we were ahead of time, and there were no surrounding technologies available. But today, I think there are supporting technologies which are required. There are a couple of missing links yet in the broadcast world. Typically, when you're talking about the linear television, and I come from linear television, so I'll talk more about that. Is that there is no return path data even today? Okay, and that information is whatever is available to today is it's an extrapolated information. So by the time you are ready with a targeted advertisement, it's probably too late. So I think there is scope. We have seen that there are revenues which definitely get added to the bottom line, but I think there's still a lot to be done in this area because there are various small gaps which needs to be closed, and they are typically the most important gap is that not every box. Let's talk about the set-top box. Not every box is enabled to do a ad replacement, and we don't have a proper return path. The day we get the solutions for this, they may be within the broadcast industry or they may be outside of the broadcast industry, but the day we get these solutions, I think we'll see a huge boom, and there will be a uniform way of selling, whether it's a customer selling then, whether it's OTT or a linear distribution or D2M or any other module. I think, that really wouldn't matter. So we are looking at those little gaps to be filled here.
Now coming to Jay. Jay, programmatic advertising has revolutionized digital ad sales, but how is it being utilized in the context of TV and broadcast media?
So, Manoj, the answer is probably in two different pieces, right? So, there are certain markets where the overall ecosystem is established. I mean, US as an example, where the CTV as an overall ecosystem, as well as with the likes of Roku, Samsung, Freevee, Google TV, they have pretty much gotten into FAST as a totally new category for lean back experiences that's taking up a significant amount of viewership. To give you a broad idea, right? I mean, last year in the US was the first time where digital streaming as a hours of viewing exceeded the traditional broadcast, right? But what is also interesting is that if you look at the ad dollars that were going into the industry, last year the US broadcast industry spent about $69 billion in advertising, vis-a-vis $25 billion for digital, which includes FAST, YouTube, all streaming put together. Now the key part to notice here is the ad dollars pretty much always follow the viewership by at least a couple of years, right? Because the pipes are set up for a certain way of ad monetization and ad billing, which takes anywhere between 24 to 36 months for that entire plumbing to change to address the digital inventory, and that's the movement that's already started happening in some of the more markets where digital is already overtaken. Now, if you take a market like India, certainly there are categories, especially like the ones which you mentioned, news as an example. If you look at the overall viewership for news as a category, there's definitely a significant, it's probably a multiple of viewing that happens on digital today when compared to what's happening on broadcast, right? But the key challenge that we also see is that since we still, a lot of our production and distribution ecosystems are still tuned for broadcast, and we are pretty much trying to use the same ecosystem for digital as well, even though the audience is largely moved on. When was the last time you were waiting for an 8 p.m. news bulletin to watch the content? But a lot of our production is still taking that shape, right? Because we still probably create clips out of it and publish. So that is certainly an area where, we see, especially as a lot of the digital viewing is moving to CTV, the addressability is going to be higher. The ad units are going to be different as well, with things like pause ads and in-content advertising and brand positioning within the content. So those are certainly the newer areas that we do see significant amount of investments happening, not just from Amagi, but in general others who are involved in that content supply chain.
My next question is to Harsha. Harsha, how are AI and machine learning being used in AdTech to optimizing advertising campaigns, both in terms of targeting and creative execution?
Thank you, Manoj. I think we work as a AI company, and that's one of our core innovations that we have done in the recent years. And I think what we have been seeing from various customers is that currently the customers are hungry to see what can the content actually do in terms of the ads that can be placed in the content, right? And if you know the context of the content, then you can place the actual ads by addressing the user behavior, the matrix that you have gathered for each of the users, and that's what is changing the game right now. So in various geographies, whether you are in Europe, in North America, or even in Indian markets, the more you know about your users, the more AI you can apply in terms of how you can address the particular user and get the more ad yields that you want from this.
My next question to you, Manoj. What are the next big innovations in AdTech that broadcasters should be paying attention to? Are there any emerging technologies that could drastically improve monetization strategies?
Yeah, I mean, technology is always the enabler for monetization. So having said that, I'll split your question into two halves. One is basically on the news side and one is on the entertainment side. So if you look at news, news is a perishable commodity. It comes in and goes off. How much fast can you monetize it depends upon the screen. So typically in one of the sessions in the morning, we said, we produce the content in the vertical form. These customers is that the trends that they're looking at today is the convergence. Because your first party data is available with the customer, we are trying, for example, there is a referenceable case study of NBC Universal and Peacock, what they've done in the industry. They've created a marketplace, a single entity or a single representation for all advertisers. So the advertiser is able to come onto the platform, select the right kind of user, whether it is on broadcast or digital, and able to advertise. So we are seeing the first party data, we are seeing the convergence of ads, we are also seeing using of clean rooms as the next big way where they can enrich their data, match those data to the relevant brands, and they are able to monetize it better. So these are some of the trends that we are seeing globally, and I'm very sure India will follow these trends very quickly.
Coming to you, Mr. Gautaman, how are broadcasters leveraging AdTech to measure return on investment for advertisers, particularly in news and entertainment?
Yeah, so ROI on measurement is a very it's a very challenging space and it's a moving object right now for various reasons. One is broadcast industry is limited by a sample-based projection of the universe, whereas the digital ecosystem is more personalization-based, individual-based, direct response to the ads being shown or communicated. Today, the challenge we have is, if you look at it from a media planner's perspective, from where I came from, $100 is spent on advertising, more than 80% goes towards the digital walled gardens, including search and social and stuff. Now, what we call as an open web is only 20-30%, and there are linear television, open web, all competing for 1/3 of the advertising pie, and that's the single largest challenge we have in the industry today. And the truth is, each one of these players are subscale compared to the big walled gardens on their own. So unless and until we find a situation where there is collaboration, where they come together to offer a better measurement system, whether it is TV plus digital or TV plus social or TV plus influencers, or various ways in which you can measure now. So in my view, the next step for broadcasters is to find a way in which they can collaborate better. That otherwise, individually, they'll always remain subscale, and you cannot invest in technologies to measure only for yourself when the big tech is throwing money at it at a larger scale. Okay, I'll give you a good example. If you look at the telcos, they compete in the market, but the tower infrastructure is common for all of them. They know when to collaborate and when to compete. I think that's a good example for the broadcasters to find a way in which what are those technologies and infrastructures which we can put for collaboration purposes and what we can use for the individual purposes. Otherwise, measurement will be a hare's horn, maybe.
Coming to you, Paritosh, how is AdTech transforming live sports and event broadcasting, where time-sensitive ad placements are critical?
Again, I'll answer this from a broadcaster's point of view, a linear broadcast. Yes, it's it's quite a challenge because typically when we talk about sports, we talk about cricket in India. Yeah, that's what sells, and what advertisers would want to position the advertisement during cricket. Unfortunately, this is from a technology perspective. There's a little bit of challenge, but I think there are ways to uh, you know tackle with it. There have been some experiments recently. We have done a couple of them, and there has been uh, we have been able to enable the targeted advertisements on sports, typically for IPL. So this has really helped, and it's helped the advertiser because they could immediately get immediate response on the advertisements that they ran, as well as they could see a lot of higher number of hits onto the web pages, as well as they could get a better return in terms of the advertisement that they ran on those typical events, live events. So, thank you.
Coming to you, Jay, addressable TV is touted as a game changer for personalized one-to-one advertising. How has it impacted broadcasting revenues?
So Manoj, it has definitely been deployed in a few different places, and there are big players, especially on the consumer operating systems like Android and others, who have been talking about how it's going to have that best of both worlds of broadcast and linear coming in with addressable TV. But the long story short, right? I mean, going back to the point that Gautam was mentioning earlier, the thing is that we have been moving over the last 5 to 10 years from a very single supply chain kind of a model, right? Where if you are on a pay television, then you're going to get an MG and you've already monetized the content, or you're putting it on the satellite even before you're going to get the first viewer. You've sold all your traffic slots, you've scheduled, collected the money from the brand, and the addressability and all of that is there. I think the bigger challenge today is, if I am a news broadcaster, unlike the past where I would just have my field sales team go sell the ads, traffic it, collected the money, there's a very clear addressability on what is the ROI for the investment, right? The challenge today is that if you have to earn the same $100, you probably are still making money on broadcast, which continues to be the biggest stream, but it's kind of dying at a double-digit percentage year over year. You're still making money on your own direct-to-consumer. You're making on digital platforms like Fast. You're making money on YouTube. You're making money on Spotify. And that is the bigger issue, right? Like what Gautam is talking about. Now, if I'm going to be spending 20 bucks on broadcast, 10 bucks on Fast, 10 bucks on YouTube, 10 bucks on Spotify, how many of these are exactly the same guy who's watching something on YouTube on the phone, who's been listening to a podcast on Spotify, coming back home and watching the TV on? And I think that is where the real measurement problem is, because as a brand today, the addressable TV, Fast, all of them talk about the addressability, but the bigger issue is that none of them truly address that overall ecosystem, right? Where you need to know that this is the same Manoj who has seen the same ad from a particular brand, once on Spotify, once on Google, once on broadcast, once on Fast. And I don't think addressable TV per se is a solution to that problem.
Coming to my last question before I open the floor to the audience, is being addressed to Harsh. Harsh, how is Adtech enabling more personalized and targeted advertising for viewers? What technology or tools are driving this shift?
I think what has happened over the years or the recent years is that the attention span of the viewers has shrunk. And because of that, today somebody is more of a sports fan. He definitely wants to see ads targeted towards a specific brand, which are related to sports when he's watching even a game or a match, right? And if you're talking about entertainment and the person lives somewhere in India in a remote village, then he definitely is not an aspirational person who's craving for a Mercedes or an Audi. So definitely he's looking for something where he can get a discounted offer from a grocery or a supermarket store. So that's what is personalization of these places where the ads are getting more and more targeted and hyper targeted to the users. And because of these shorter attention spans, The technologies today with our friends, whatever the broadcasters are trying, whatever Amagi is trying, whatever we are trying, whatever AWS is trying, all of us guys are trying to bring that ecosystem together for the viewers so that this collaboration can happen in a more meaningful way. And as Paritosh mentioned previously, this is more still a work in progress as the industry is progressing. And this has evolved in more of an American market or European markets, and India is still catching up these trends. And I think the other thing is the digital consumption is happening more than the linear today, and everyone is opening. Jaya just mentioned that how is CTV changing the ecosystem? How is different things on shoppable ads that is become a more evolved trend these days. So people want to see what they want to shop. Somebody wants to go to Myntra, somebody wants to go to Amazon. So that is the personalization that I'm seeing which technology is influencing, and we are all part of those ecosystem which is playing that game as well. Yeah.
I would now like to throw open the floor to the audience. Any questions from the audience? Anybody has any specific questions to anybody? Yeah, mic here, please.
Do we have the trends available for the shoppable ads in the region, or like compared to other markets? Any static data, anything?
Yeah, so shoppable ads is something that Indian consumers are experimenting right now. The fulfillment part of that is still not taken care of. But there is very much a requirement. See, first you have to understand who the consumer is to target him better. So that is where what Gautaman said, that unless and until you collaborate, how do I know the consumer that I'm looking for and the consumer who's on the shopping platform is the same? So that's where the trends are. But there's no success case studies yet published, which is available on a public domain. But yes, answer is still people are trying on that.
I would just add one more thing there, right? If you do look at the global trends, even though it's not here yet, pretty much anybody who has an app today wants to be a super app, right? So recently Walmart spent a few $1 billion to acquire Vizio, which is a huge digital platform themselves, including a TV operating system. So the key part that we do see is over the next 5 or 10 years, we're probably going to have a lot of the people who are in spaces like e-commerce who want to have the consumer spend more and more time on their own app offering TV services, right? I mean, Amazon itself is a big example of that, right? Now, a lot of these have not come together, but that's certainly the space where we're going to see more of this coming, because in the current context, one of the challenges also is that between a content owner and the platform who eventually controls those shoppable ads in terms of initiating those purchases, there are going to be things like brand conflicts and various other things, right? So you definitely need somebody who's coming from that e-commerce hat. Then things are probably going to start moving much faster.
Any more questions? Okay, then I would like to address a final concluding question to all the panelists in 30 to 40 seconds if all of them can answer. Manoj, how do you see the future trends in Adtech for broadcasters, say 5 years to 10 years down the line?
I think to sum it up, I can put it in a sentence saying that know more about your consumer, more you understand the consumer, more your CPM will be, higher the dollars would be, and that is where the monetization would start in. Today, broadcasters don't understand the consumer end to end. They don't know who the user is because we have a third party in between who's distributing it. While on the digital side, they know who the user is. So the more you understand about a consumer, the more first party data you have about yourself, the stronger you would become in this ecosystem and gain that market share which Gautaman was talking about.
I think I'll echo what Manoj is saying, but also build on it. In the next 5 years' time, for sure, the power would have shifted to the consumer. He or she decides what he wants to watch, what he wants to buy, and what he wants to engage in content with. And bear in mind that in the next 5 years' time, you will also get into the first glimpse of the Web3 world. We're still talking Web 2. We're not even come to the world of Web3 where wallets will come in. Every big tech companies have already launched their own open wallet architecture. Consumer will control what he or she wants. Our technology needs to evolve to how we're going to ensure that we still have a play and the full choice is moved to the consumer.
I primarily see the ad tech eventually is going to follow the where the viewership is going to be, right? I see a more fundamental challenge for the broadcasters who have come to the place where they are in phases, right? Because a lot of investments in terms of technology processes were made for broadcast, then when digital first came, then direct to consumer came, now fast is there. I do see a lot of investment happening right from the production time all the way into meta tagging the content, keeping in mind the entire life cycle of the content. Because one of the bigger limitations in terms of truly monetizing the content today is the fact that we prepared the content for broadcast and we're trying our level best to try and monetize it in various different areas. So even though it doesn't relate much directly to AdTech, I do see a lot more work that the broadcasters would be doing in terms of unifying their workflows so that they can meaningfully monetize the content through that entire life cycle of the content.
Harsha, what's your take?
I think I will agree to Manoj, Gautam and Jay, all of the things that they have said. But to conclude, I would slightly reverse it in a different way from a producer's perspective. Somebody who is producing the content, somebody who owns the content or is the IP owner, and then finally who is broadcasting the content. And then it goes to the consumer. So from a producer's perspective, I think IP is still going to be the king. So if you can't make the best content, you can't have the best of the ads being placed or the users watching it, right? So if the users have to watch your ads, you need to make best content. You need to know what that content is about and get smarter about it. And once you know that, then obviously like Manoj said, Jay said, and everyone else said, you know the first party data and hence you can monetize it more, hence you can get more dollars out of it. And I think the dollar will then flow in the reverse directions to the producers because ultimately they are also going to be the just share owner of the profits that are being derived from these ads. So I think the trend that I see is two ways. One, you have obviously to know more about your consumers, but you also have to make the content smarter.
Over to you, Paritosh, as a broadcaster, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think what's important is that all the parties involved, right from the content creator to the consumer, everyone they have to all come together. They have to come as a single party, or they have to cooperate with each other so that the right ads get delivered to the right set of people. Now, if you see, the earlier way of advertisement in broadcasting was more of spot advertisements. Now today what's happening is that the broadcasters are trying to do it as an impression, and when that happens, and I think in the future when we have more of impression based advertisements, I think it's going to give a lot of boost to the broadcasting industry too. So those are the areas, and of course the challenges that we spoke about, we still have gaps. If we can close those challenges, typically of the data, the information of who the consumer is, who's the advertiser, and how he is getting influenced, okay, then I think we have in the next 5 years there's a big story there. Thank you.
With that, thank you so much. I would like to thank all the speakers for this wonderful, engaging session. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. And now Manoj will present you all with a small memento.
To the photo.
Please come to the center. I request the panelists to please come to the center of the stage for a group picture.